point you should have read The Miller's Tale. Just giving you, I'm going to walk you through some basic things to give you an understanding of kind of the framework of it, but I'm going to leave it up to you to pull some of your own conclusions. Some of the characters that we have, the miller, who's the one telling the tale, he kind of upsets the story order because in the order of the stories, we first started with The Knight's Tale, which some of you may have seen the movie with Heath Ledger, which again is about a young knight and courtly love, and everything is in, kind of the King Arthur, Guinevere, Lancelot mode of storytelling. Here, we get kind of the complete opposite. We get John, who is a carpenter. He's old and rich. We see him here. He's described as phlegmatic. Again, with the four humors, we know that if he's prone to phlegmatic, then he's sickly and cowardly. Allison, young, pretty, same name as the wife of Bath. Nicholas, young, described as very sanguine. Again, sanguine, excess of blood, means he's horny all the time. And Absalom, who's the parish clerk, has a crush on Allison, and today would be described as a dork. And then we have a local blacksmith who's in there. But really, it's going to be John, Allison, Nicholas, and Absalom who are our main characters. The type of this particular story is a fable, or a fabliau, which at this time was a short, humorous, bawdy tale in verse. So it's a short, funny, dirty poem, basically. Characteristics of it here, it's realistic. None of the magic, none of that kind of stuff's going to happen here. The setting is very basic, and everything that is said for a reason. Everything that is done for a reason. Nothing is extra in these. Characters, various rascals engaging in the seven deadly sins. Again, descriptive traits. You're not describing the person in these just to, draw a nice, image in your mind for them. Everything that is said to describe them is very specific and will be used at some point in the story. The action is very vivid. Dialogue, very short, not a lot of long monologues. It's usually set in contemporary everyday world, meaning for that time frame. So it's not once upon a time or in a galaxy far, far away. It's, very much contemporary setting. And it usually deals with man's basic functions. Usually is dealing with sex, but also then brings in everything from, using the bathroom to laughing and burping and thinking. It's more concerned with cunning, being able to fool someone else, than in looking at virtue and evil. Virtue and evil is really kind of the knight's tale, telling the story of star-crossed love, etc. And it opposes all pretensions to authority. Again, as I told you, everything is there for a reason. So, for example, when you read it and there's a reference on Nicholas's floor being covered with rushes and spices, that's an allusion to Saint Nicholas, which, again, Saint Nicholas, what we think of as Santa, is much different from the European version of Saint Nicholas. But there's that in there. When it's talking about Nicholas is studying astronomy, that's an important plot point we'll need later. When Absalom makes a comment that he's squeamish about farting and he doesn't like people farting around him, that's important because that becomes a plot point later on. When the miller introduces the tale, he says that he's going to tell a legend about the life of a carpenter and his wife. And so this is immediately where the story again starts getting flipped on its head, because who do you expect to hear about? That's not the story that you're going to hear. Again, it follows immediately The Knight's Tale, which was a flowery tale of chivalry, ideal love. This one is a tale of what the miller assumes real love actually plays out on a daily basis. It contains a parody of the Annunciation when it's announced to Mary that she will bear the child Jesus. Here we have Nicholas, who sings a song called Angelus et Virginem to Allison, but of course it's ironic because we know from the characterization Nicholas is no angel, he's very sanguine, and Allison of course is no virgin. Whereas Mary, the Virgin Mary, was filled with awe at being chosen to be part of God's plan. Allison is thrilled to be a part of Nicholas's divine plan to outwit her husband. Um, Within the Virgin Mary story, we have the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. We also have, you can also look at Joseph, Mary, and the angel Gabriel. And here we have the unholy trinity of John, Allison, and Nicholas. And so also if you start to consider the physical description of Allison, you'll see some symbolic and literal meaning as well. Again, as I've just said, it's the complete opposite of what had just come, what had just been told. So instead of having, a holy kind of love triangle, we have an unholy. Instead of order, we have chaos. Instead of true love, we have lust. And instead of religion, we have the real world as it is. Some recurring themes that keep happening, which we refer to as motif. These things recur again and again throughout the entire Canterbury Tales. Romance. In this one, we see Allison causes men to fall in love with her, both Absalom and Nicholas. And so the whole plot is based on the romance and the problems of the romance. The idea of blindness, not physical blindness, but we have characters showing a blind spot to something. Absalom with Allison not wanting to be with him. John with his obsession with the flood, the second coming of a flood. And Nicholas and Allison both being short-minded in their ideal of wanting to sleep together, what the consequences would be. We have a lot of dirty humor in the plot. There's a lot of farts and butt jokes. Part of that is to kind of show us how he's looking down on a particular character's actions. So the dirtiness is meant to kind of incite you to not like certain aspects of each of the characters. And then, of course, the use of language. There's tons of vulgar words used, different versions of PRIV. Again, we have the privy, where's the bathroom, privacy, also the idea that goes to private parts. So when in this early version of English he starts using these words with priv, again he can be referring to bathroom humor or a man or woman's private parts. ERS, which we now is the modern day British English equivalent arse or American ass. And so really kind of meaning the asshole. To be a little bit vulgar here as well. He mentions that Nicholas gets up to go piss, and so he uses that word instead of a nicer way of saying it. And he also uses the word, I am not 100% sure of its pronunciation. I've looked at a couple different things, and different dictionaries give a little bit different pronunciation. But we have quench, or quent, which has become, in modern English, the word cunt. And so it's used quite a bit throughout the story. Not only that Allison gives up her Kent to him, but then Absalom, after the joke is played on him, he is kented. So again, it's used all over the place in very vulgar use. What are some of the other themes? The desire for sex is the ultimate goal here. Allison and Nicholas want to get together to spend a night together, not just a few minutes having lustful, passionate sex. But there's bigger questions here. Allison, is married off to John, who's an old man. So the idea of a youthful and an old man, is that an acceptable sexual pairing? We see her looking at the young clerk who is living with them in the boarding house, Nicholas. It also talks about the difference, or it leads to the difference between sex and love. And then we also deal with love versus lust. What does love really mean? Who is Allison really in love with? And maybe what the ultimate goal is that love is either misguided. If she's in love with Nicholas, there's a misguided motion, or love doesn't exist at all if it's what she's supposed to feel for her husband. We have lies and deceit. versus reality and truth. There's a large contrast between what's real and what's truthful. We have Nicholas telling John that a new flood is coming, and that's the ruse to get him away so that he can spend the night with his John's wife. So everyone is tricking everyone else. Why? So they can try to have sex with one another. So this is just a big, huge kind of comedy of errors for everyone to be able to hook up. And the competition for the ultimate prize is the woman. The love triangle is Nicholas and Absalom, who are competing for the love of the woman. Allison, which she doesn't care for Absalom as well. So Nicholas is definitely going to win, but we see that they get their comeuppance at the end. And so once you've read through this, I want you to really think, why is this story obscene? Is it just the language? Is it the story? Is it the religious aspect brought in? What are some of the different reasons that you could see why this story would be obscene? And that is going to be one of the questions on the quiz. So you will need to go back and reread the story because you will need to back up your reason with examples from the story.